Truth seekers, mount up. From the hills and hollers of southern Indiana to the Lone Star State of Texas, we are the hunters of the paranormal.
Good evening, Truth Seekers. We're back again with episode 30, and tonight's guest is John of Paranormal Houston from TikTok, and he also has a channel on YouTube called Exploring the Supernatural with John. And I'd like to welcome John to our show and say thank you, John, for taking part of your day away from you and coming on the show to talk to us today.
Not a problem at all. Anytime I get a chance to talk about the paranormal, somebody wants to listen, I'm all mouth.
I'm the same way. I get to talking about it, and I don't want to stop sometimes.
I hear you.
John, can you give us like a brief history of how you got into this, the paranormal, and how your paranormal journey began? That would be a good way to start here.
Well, if I start there, it won't be brief.
Okay, well, you don't have to be brief.
Okay. Well, my adventures actually started in childhood, and my brother and I would actually share dreams. We did some out-of-body experiences together simultaneously, even while sleeping. And one night we were noisy enough that we woke our mother, and she came in and checked on us, and she was quite shocked to see us floating around the room and also sharing a dream where we were fighting some spiders. And she didn't know what to do about that or how to handle it or anything, and she just kind of never mentioned it again. So we didn't mention it again either. But throughout my life, I've had dreams that came true. Many of them I remembered in time to save my life. And I could go into detail about many of those. Many of the things that have happened in my life, I dreamed about before they happened. And one of the things that I have always been afraid of is fire. And in one of my dreams, I died by fire in a car wreck. And so I've got a number of stories I could tell about incidents that relate to that. But to overcome my fear of fire, I joined the fire department. And I became a rescue captain in the fire department. I was actually blown up in one case. And the good Lord saved my life again. I damaged some scar tissue on I have scar tissue on my lungs, so I can't fight fire anymore. Of course, I'm too old these days anyway, but it was God redirecting my path. But sometime after that, I had gone into piping design, was doing a lot of piping design work, designing chemical plants and refineries. My wife had become ill. My wife had been a practicing witch in college, and she had always believed in the paranormal. She became bedridden for many years, had poor quality of life. And when TAPS came on TV, she started watching it, and she was thrilled to death. She thought that was the greatest show, and she wanted to do some ghost hunting. Well, I thought that perhaps I could get her out of bed, motivate her to try harder to get out of bed by getting involved in doing some actual ghost hunting. So at the time, Chris Moon, I don't know if you know Chris or not, he has a box called Telephone to the Dead. And he was traveling around. He had a magazine in Colorado at the time called Haunted Times. Very good magazine, had very good articles, really great. It folded eventually, and I was really sad to see it go. But he didn't want to cheapen the production of it, and they used expensive paper, and he didn't want to cheapen the production of it. So they closed rather than to, put out a less worthy magazine to their standards anyway. So I've always been kind of impressed with Chris, but at the time he was teaching Ghost Hunters 101 and 102, and he would travel around to different haunted locations. And so at one time he was advertising in New Orleans. He never did seem to come to Houston or, anywhere really close. And I thought, well, New Orleans is not that bad. So I signed up, went over to New Orleans, spent a weekend with Chris and about 8 other people. Had experiences I had never expected to have, and I was most impressed. And so when I came back to Houston, I was looking for a ghost group to get with, and I really couldn't find anybody I was happy with. So I started my own. We started actually as a meetup site for, on Meetup, and started looking for some people, and I found some people that were very interested in it. And next thing you know, we've grown to 350 people on our group. So it's hard to find something to do for 350 people. We rented the Tremont House in Galveston, and Galveston had a storm in 1900. A lot of people are unaware of the storm that happened in 1900, or they may have heard of it and they don't know all the statistics. But over 10,000 people died. So
Wow.
Galveston is a very haunted place. Lots of parts of it are haunted by other things as well, besides the flood. So anyway, we had rented the Tremont House, and they were excellent with us. They took real good care of us. I had Chris Moon come from Colorado. He came in and taught at Ghost Hunter University 101, 102 to train our people to, so we'd all be doing everything the same. I think it's important that everybody do the job the same so that no matter who's doing it, you get the same results. You don't want everybody doing it different or putting their own little twist on it, because it can alter or skew the outcome. And if you're truly looking for and trying to collect real data, then it needs to be done in a scientific manner. That's my belief anyway. Now, a lot of groups like the lights, but when they come away, they say, yeah, we communicated with somebody and they've got some video of it and stuff, but they can't tell you how high the EMFs got. They can't tell you how much the temperature changed. They can't tell you if there were barometric changes. They can't tell you if there were vibrations going on. We have equipment that logs all that every second, all of these things, so that we can keep track of it. And also, we are also concerned about how the weather affects paranormal. Solar spots. We get national forecasts from the solar energy people on what the sun is doing, what the tides are doing. If it's a full moon or not, we track all that, and we try to keep those records in our documents that we're keeping on each of the investigations that we do, and we're trying to do some honest correlation on some of it. And we're not super busy, but we try to do a good bang-up job when we have a case. So that's how I got started, why I got started, and where I am now.
The equipment that you were talking about using, are you referring to something called data loggers?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how do those work? I heard you talk about barometric pressure and all of the different things that it can detect.
Yeah.
I bet that is valuable.
Right here. I usually have it right here beside me, and I don't have it tonight because I refer to it so often. But anyway.
Now, go ahead. Is it something that you have to run a bunch of wires to?
Or no, it's totally independent. It's got a 9-volt battery in it. A 9-volt? No, it's got 3 double A cells in it. 3 double A cells.
3 double A cells.
And it's got an SD card on it. And what it does is it logs everything to the SD card, and it puts it into a file. You can extract it through some software into an Excel sheet. And it's got the columns down, seconds down the side, and what all the pressures were, temperature, how much vibration, EMFs, the whole shoot match, all the way across the sheet. And you can go second by second. And if I've got my video camera going from back, behind the thing, and watching the recorder, I can kind of tell what has triggered it or what's going on with it, or if there's some other devices that I can read with it. Now, it does have a screen on it, so it's reporting that to you, and it has lights for the different banks of things, and you can tell if the temperature is going up, going down, barometric pressure is going up, going down, or, it's got indicators, and it's actually got a speaker on it too, to alarm.
Since there's a thing called AI, artificial intelligence, that's out now, and like a lot of the digital cameras, there's a lot of stuff out there that people will fake, which I think is a shame that people would go to such lengths to fake stuff like that, because it's hard enough to get out there and try to collect your own evidence. And then, people will say, oh, even if it is good evidence, they'll say, oh, well, it's fake, or you've photoshopped it or whatever. And one of the questions that I have for you is, what do you think about going back to analog, like analog technologies, like say the regular cassette tape recorders and regular cameras with film? Because we actually talked to a guy by the name of Guy Winters that caught a good, awesome photograph of a ghost here in Indiana. And he was using regular film, and he even described I forget it, I think it was like 400 millimeter or something, but he described the technique that he used. And he said that they would go when it was getting ready to storm. And he said, you wouldn't believe the pictures that you'll get when the storms come in.
Okay. Well, my personal opinion is that we don't know enough to be able to tell what's better or not. As far as pictures go, yes, there's a lot of artificial intelligence, and you can generate most anything you want. That's why I think it's important to be part of a team, because in one case that we have, there is a mist. Well, we've caught a number of mist and a number of clouds or smoky, misty things from time to time. Excuse me. What I think is important about that is that we are there. I mean, you could doctor that in there, no question about it. Somebody that wanted to could doctor it and make a photograph just like it from scratch somehow. And I don't doubt it. But when you got 18 members out there that have all seen one of you take the picture, we talked about the picture afterwards. We reviewed the picture while it's still on the camera. It's not been in any software yet. We can back up that is a real picture that we took, and to our own satisfaction, we can back that up. Now, we know that there are people that will always claim, there's always a naysayer somewhere that's going to say this is a doctored photograph. Well, and to be honest with you, if I was in their position, I might say the same thing. But I was there. I saw the picture being taken. I have other members that were there that saw the picture being taken. So we would dispute with anybody whether these are fake or not, some of them. But now I have had team members that did try to fake pictures. And of course, It is easier to fake pictures in digital mode than it is with film. However, you got to go back to the spiritualism that started in the 1900s was by photographers that were using time delay, and they might have somebody move across a setting there, and they would appear ghost-like. And so there are ways to do it even on, analog.
Analog film. Yeah, correct. Very good. How do you keep like during an investigation? I would think that it would be hard to have a bunch of team members to go into an area at one time. It is, but I try to keep it to 3. I like 3. I like a little team of 3 for several reasons. My point on that is that if somebody gets hurt, somebody can stay with the person that's hurt. Somebody can go for help. Now, of course, we all have cell phones and stuff. They may be turned off because you don't want, when you're trying to collect EVPs, you don't want your cell phone going off, And so there are times when you may not even carry it with you because you don't want the cell phone to go off and interrupt or ruin any data that you're collecting. So that's why I recommend 3 teams of 3. It's a decent number, and it's not
50-50. One guy says one thing, one guy says one thing, and that they contradict each other. We got three people, and two of them are going to agree on something, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I like teams of three.
Have you ever used a thing called Dragon Speak? And do you know what Dragon Speak is?
I do not. I have not used it.
Dragon Speak. The only reason why I mention this is I had a buddy that was a Vietnam vet, and he would talk to me all the time about the Buddhist religion and stuff, because that's what the people over in Vietnam were familiar with. And he had an interest in it. But anyway, he was wanting to write a book about his experiences over there in Vietnam. So I told him about this program called Dragon Speak, where you could talk into the microphone and it would record your voice of what you were saying, and it would type it out for you without having to use a keyboard, because he didn't know how to type. Uh-huh. So I set that up for him, and he had been using it, but he didn't shut it off when we left the house, and we left and went to town for about an hour or two, and we came back, and this thing had typed out stuff about Buddha without anybody being in the room. Like, I mean, it was like it was a ghost was in the room talking this stuff. And that was back before he didn't even have internet then. So there wasn't even internet. So the likelihoods of that being hacked, and I don't even think the computer at the time had Wi-Fi to it. You know how it was, you know, like a dial-up or whatever. But he was just using it to record with into the computer. But anyway, I thought that would be an interesting way to maybe do a ghost hunt, just setting something like that up in a building and leaving and coming back and seeing if something was recorded and written on there, because I saw that happen with that, and often wondered.
Well, that sounds like a way to do it that might work. Mm-hmm. I know that if you did that with a regular recorder and you came back and listened to it, you're going to be picking up all kinds of noises, and you're going to spend a lot of time investigating. And once that gets over 10, 20 minutes long, it takes forever to go through that tape and try to identify all the sounds.
Now, when you go through those tapes and stuff, I saw in one of your videos where you had like looked like some kind of a voice analyzer or whatever. You could see like the peaks and valleys of the audio.
Yes.
Whenever you get an EVP, have you noticed, is there a change in the peaks and valleys to where it's almost like in a different frequency? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there gaps in between, or is it just something?
There are gaps in between. Yeah.
Whenever there's a gap, is that kind of an indicator of something to look for to kind of?
It kind of helps. There'll be gaps and then a peak, gaps and a peak, and at those gaps and peaks, those are good places to look. Sure.
That I kind of noticed that in your video, and I thought, well, I'm going to ask that question.
Yeah.
Is there any? What would your favorite places to investigate be? Like home, cemeteries, hospitals, or is it just can happen at any moment and it can happen anywhere?
It can happen anywhere at any moment. Now, I'll tell you what I've been promoting lately. I don't know if you caught my videos on the Alamo, but I'm kind of promoting people going to some of the historic sites. One of the things I have recently started was kind of what I'm calling a community service project. And I've done a little work with some of the people out at the Texas Historic Commission at the Sand Center Battleground. And I've helped them to do some stuff out there periodically. But I'm thinking that a lot of these historic sites, there is energy stored there from the events that have occurred there. So the Alamo, of course, is a well-known site. Almost everybody in the world has heard of the Alamo, you know, and a lot of people falsely believe that Texas won their independence there. And actually, it was one of the worst defeats Texas had during the War for Independence. And everybody died there. So, I mean, there was a lot of emotion there that was released into that. The material in the walls of the Alamo had to absorb some of that energy, and it has to be on the grounds and stuff. I want to encourage people, especially Houston's supposed to grow to the largest city in the United States in the next few years. and people are coming from New York, California, Canada, all over, China even. You can't believe the number of people from China that have been contacting me lately, and other countries. It's just amazing that people everywhere are coming from everywhere. But anyway, my thought process was that to help them transition becoming good Texans, they need to know a little Texas history and how they're going to learn it. So I started one where I was doing the Alamo fell on March the 6th. On February the 23rd, I started the podcast of what was happening at the Alamo every day, and I ended it on March the 6th when the Alamo actually fell, the anniversary date of it falling in 1836. It won't be long, and it'll be the 200th anniversary.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So anyway, that's coming up. But I'm right now working on some videos and stuff along where the Sam Houston and the Army retreated with the Mexicans in pursuit of them, which ends up, with Sam Houston beating the Mexicans at the Battle of San Jacinto on April the 21st. So we're going to the places where the Army has camped and trying to pick up, some indications of whether or not we're getting any paranormal activity at these sites.
That is a really awesome way to do investigations. I like how you tied the history into it, and you're going day by day on the dates and everything. That is really awesome. We have there was a place up north where I used to live, and it's right off of Highway 1, and there's a monument there, and it was from the War of 1812. And there was a couple people that lost their life in a swamp, and the horses and riders both went down in the swamp. But that might be a good place to go up and investigate.
Well, is that Louisiana?
No, it's up in northern Indiana.
Okay, because I was just wondering, you mentioned swamp and 1812, but I think actually 1814, I think, was the battle in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
this is, I believe it or not, we do have a little bit of swamp lands up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can believe it. You can have one the most anywhere if you got enough water.
Oh, yeah. And I tell you what, John, about that area up through there, when you're traveling up Highway 1, it seems like the farther north you get, there's just this, and I've had family members mention it. There's just this foreboding. There's just this foreboding feeling there. As soon as you get up to that point, it's right about that point where they're at. Yeah. And I pulled over the side of the road and I read about this. There was some kind of a Indian, it was like an Indian village there. And I guess when they came in, the soldiers came in, they were starving and they were hungry, and they wiped out everybody in that village to get their food and stuff to keep warm. So
and
I don't know if that's
probably would have given it all to them anyway,
they probably would have. And I bet that's part of the feeling that we feel in there when we go up through there. It's just a awful feeling when you go up on that highway like that. Yeah. What are the different types of hauntings? There's like, is there stuff that's imprinted, like you said, on like the Alamo, like in the walls? Is there like, what's the difference between that and like, say, an intelligent haunting?
Well, an intelligent haunting actually responds to you. Those are some of the ones that some of the teams on TV try to fake a lot.
Okay.
But anyway, you're getting an intelligent reaction to you, or you're getting a voice that you hear from it. It actually interacts with you, whereas one that is implanted runs like a movie. It's indifferent to your presence. It doesn't care what you're doing. It goes about playing the recording like a movie. And over time, they dissipate, but it takes a long time on some of them, depending on what materials are available to, engrave this recording in. I think some of the places that have the best engraving probably are places that have quartz crystal in it. And actually that's what we use for computer memory chips.
The old radios used to be quartz, didn't they?
Yep. Quartz crystals. Yes, sir. Sure did.
Quartz crystal radio. And that could captures information.
Yes, it does. And stores it.
It totally makes sense. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, they're finding out in science now. There's a whole science behind water holds memory as well.
Yes,
Have you heard that, John?
I have. And not only that, but the more that it's got some electrolytes in it, it seems like it does better. So, yeah.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
Have you ever I witnessed a ghost personally?
I've seen a few, and I've seen a few. I've seen more black shadow figures. I enjoyed the black shadow figures a great deal. I hear all kinds of stories about black shadow figures, and some people seem to be afraid of them and feel like they're malevolent. The ones I have encountered have all been playful and fun.
Oh, wow.
We were in a cemetery one night and one appeared. And one of the gals I had out there, we had several women and some guys, but one of the gals was kind of a tomboy. She took off after that black shadow figure. She was hard. She was a pretty fast runner. She was hard on the heels of that dude. And it was kind of funny, and it was dodging amongst the tombstones and jumping over some and going around some and really trying to get away from her. And it was kind of interesting to watch. And the next one I encountered, we were in a location in Crosby, Texas, and it was a retail store where a child had died, and the people had there was the residence was above the store, and they had rented it out to this couple, and the child had died the week before I think we did the investigation, and but they were having some hauntings in the shop and some other things, and so we went and investigated, and we encountered one of those black shadow figures there. And my team, I happened to be in the main living room. And of course, the place was pretty empty. We just had our equipment in the main living room and some chairs that we were sitting on and stuff. It was under construction, being remodeled. So we were sitting on, some of it was plywood, different things. And I was doing something, and I looked up, and in the kitchen, just across from me, was a black shadow person, about 3 feet tall, looking at me. And I sat there and I looked at it, and something told me, a big grin came on my face because I could tell it was playful. That's the feeling I was getting from it, that it wanted to play. And so I said, okay, we're going to play. And I knew that if I took my eyes off of it, it was going to be gone. If I blinked, it was going to be gone. And I'm sitting there keeping my eyes open, not moving. And I'm hollering to the different team members around to see where they are to try to get them to come and cut this thing off.
Oh, wow.
And so they're all trying to come and participate in it. And finally, I couldn't hold my eyes open any longer. I blinked and boom, it was gone.
And you knew it was going to be gone.
I knew it was going to go, yeah.
Oh, man. Have speaking of that, the black shadow figures and the ghosts, have you witnessed any poltergeist activity, like anything moving around or any objects?
I have seen objects move. I haven't actually, but I'm not sure that it was technically poltergeist. And actually, I'm finding that some people have different opinions as to what poltergeist activity is. I've always believed that it had to do with an individual causing it, a young girl, mostly young women coming into puberty and not knowing how to handle their hormones and stuff were causing this activity. But it could be a male. However, I've heard of a couple of cases lately where that wasn't the case and they were having poltergeist sort of activity. So I'm questioning now how do we define what a poltergeist is?
That's interesting, isn't it? Like you talked about the hormones and the women, and I have heard that young adolescent females, it is around them more often than anyone. But
that was my definition. That was my definition for it. And so when I started hearing these other things, I'm thinking, maybe I need to rethink this.
So instead of being a haunting, that'd be more along the lines of telekinesis.
Telekinesis or something like that, yeah.
Like using the force.
Yeah, actually, it's a mental type thing where they are out of control. They are unconsciously doing it. They're not doing it on purpose.
John, why do you think some of these spirits hang around? Or do you think, Are they just cursed to walk the earth, or do you think they've lost their life so quick that they are in limbo and don't know where to go? Or
I think there are cases where they have lost their lives so quick they may not know that they are dead yet. Okay.
Mhm.
I think that there are spirits out there that, well, let's face it, if we are all going to be judged by God, and that is our Christian belief, if you're a Christian, that we're going to go and be judged. And if you don't feel like that you've led a Christian life or that you're going to make it to heaven, you, sorry about that.
no, you're perfectly fine. That's
Alexa
fine.
is going off on her own.
Uh,
So, Alexa, cancel. Thank you. She
hey, have
canceled.
you ever tried? Have you ever tried using Alexa on an investigation?
I have not. I'm going to have to turn her off. I've never had her interrupt the podcast before.
Uh-huh. That's
But
interesting.
we had some spirits acting up earlier before we started this podcast, and this may be them.
Yeah, very well, maybe.
And I didn't catch what she was saying. It wasn't loud enough. So,
Yeah, I couldn't make it out either.
yeah. Maybe in the recording, when it's played back, maybe we can separate out the audio and figure out what it was.
And wasn't it funny that we were talking about why some of them hang around, and then all of
Yes.
a sudden that happened?
Absolutely.
Like
And
it was.
I do have my wife here. My wife passed away some time ago, so she's been gone for 10 years. And a lot of times when I'm around people that can see spirits, they
Mhm.
see her behind me. And I was on something last week where somebody says, "Oh, is that who's behind you?" Yeah, that's who's behind me. She doesn't let me go far.
Oh wow! So she's with you all the time. Do you? And you
Pretty
feel
much
her
all the
presence.
time, yeah.
You feel
I
her
can
presence.
call on her a lot of the times to help me on some of these investigations, especially when I'm trying to use dowsing rods or something like that. She'll assist me, sure enough. And if you watch the dowsing rod video I did, I called on her to help me.
Oh wow! That's awesome. One of the questions I got for you, John. In these investigations you go to, do you guys ever experience smells of like cigarette smoke, or say like in the wintertime, real strong smell of flowers or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the premier things that we teach our people is that when, we're getting ready to go on a ghost hunt, part of the idea is that we go ahead and shower, that we use deodorant that is not got any odor to it at all, that is
Mhm.
neutral, that we don't use any fragrances like perfume or aftershave or anything like that. We don't want to cover up and hide these smells and stuff because a lot of times one of these spirits will come in. The first thing you know is you'll smell pipe, you'll smell cigarettes, you'll smell a cigar, you'll smell lilac perfume that the old ladies used to wear a long time ago. And so a lot of times that's the first indicator that you've got something's going to happen. Sure is. And
I
also,
had.
we restrict cigarette smoking too. If somebody is a smoker, and we actually don't have any smokers in the group right now, but if we do have smokers, we restrict them to go out by the cars and
Mhm.
smoke out there because it would be too easy for us to take a photograph and get cigarette smoke in it. And a lot of the things that we have taken pictures of look like they could be generated by somebody blowing smoke in there, but we don't allow the smoke, and that's why we don't allow them to be that close with cigarette smoke. They're with the cars. They're never where we're investigating.
I've had experiences where I've woke up in the middle of the night smelling cigarette smoke. And nobody in our house smokes, and nobody that I know of ever smoked in here. And only thing I could relate it to at the time was that it was my grandmother had come to visit because my
Yeah.
grandmother used to smoke when I was a child.
Yeah.
And it just happened to me the other night. And then one other time I had the house filled up with the smell of roses.
Mhm.
So strong that I had family members got up. I was staying up late in the middle of the night and was on a computer. And the best way I could describe before the smell came, what happened was it was like a rush of cold air shot up behind me. And it was like someone was standing over me, just like leaning over my back, like, and I could feel their presence like right there to
Yeah.
the point where I whipped around to look and see if somebody was there. And then all of a sudden the house smelled up or filled up with the smell of roses.
Yeah.
And my mom actually got out of bed and said, "Did you just spray something? What's that smell?" And, it just, and in this same house, we actually saw and I witnessed it with my mom as well. This black ink blot looking shadowy thing come down out of the corner of the ceiling, and it went down behind the computer where we was at watching it, and we both looked up and looked at it at the same time, and it was like it had an intelligence about it, and it was like it was like, uh-oh, I got caught, and it like went back and forth and then boom, shot right back up into the ceiling where it came from.
Yeah.
So would that be a spirit, John, do you think?
It could be, absolutely could be. I would think that it probably was. And I trust my feelings a lot. I'm a little bit of an empath, so I feel things more than I see them.
Mhm.
And I really get pretty good results from some of these feelings.
During your investigation, I've always wanted to ask ghost investigators if they've ever done this before. I feel like when you go into an investigation, if you're talking about capturing ghosts and stuff while you're investigating, I feel like sometimes the ghosts can maybe hear you and they're watching you because we can't see them a lot of times around us, and that they will avoid coming out or whatever to be detected. So the question I have is, have you ever went into an investigation where you go in, don't say anything, and lay down say a hidden camera or a hidden recording device like in something, and then just walk away and try to do an investigation that way?
Well, we've done that a number of times, and it hasn't turned out well. Like I say, if you leave a recorder going very long and you're trying to go through that audio file, it takes all week to go through and listen to those sounds, that you didn't realize were going on at the time. I kind of like to keep those sessions as short as possible. And more concentrated, where we're asking a lot of questions and having the 10-second interval and stuff in there where we can get an interaction. Now, I think it's real important that you be respectful of these spirits. Mm-hmm. I think you should introduce yourself to them, tell them you're not there to hurt them or to harm them in any way, and you don't want to be hurt or harmed yourself. And then, introduce everybody in the group to them. And ask them then to introduce themselves to you and try to get it on a recorder. So I think that's the best start that you can have. And it encourages them to want to do it. Now, one of the projects that we do periodically is a cemetery cleanup. We've done a number of cemetery cleanups over the years, and we've helped a couple get historic markers put on them. And it takes doing surveys and stuff like that, going out and trimming trees, chainsaws, a lot of work. And a lot of times then after the day is done and we put in the work, we'll sit down and talk to the spirits and see what they think about our efforts. And we've gotten some good results from some of that. We'll hear them walking around us. They'll be opening and closing car doors to our cars. Well, I say they're opening and closing them. We're hearing the car doors open and close. Mm-hmm. And we can see the cars, and there's not a door being opened, not a door being closed. But we hear it. So a lot of times we're rewarded for some of our efforts by trying to, work with these entities.
To be forthcoming instead of being sneaky.
Yeah. So that we're not, trying to take advantage of them or anything. We're there to help serve them, really,
Yeah,
and
that makes
sense. They have messages for their family and stuff.
This is a question that I have for you from my friend. I would call him the Fort Worth Phantom, but he lives in Dallas, Texas. There, okay. He wanted to know if you had ever caught any pictures of it looks like a picture from the past. You know what I'm saying? Like, say, like an old truck sitting in the background that wasn't there, or a car or a house, or have you caught anything like that? But the reason why I asked this is because he lived in I think it was close to Dallas, Texas at the time. He could tell you. If he was here, he could tell you the name of the place.
Yeah.
But he was. What we do is when we go out, we'll go in the woods and take pictures all around us, and then we'll go back home and look. And a lot of times, there's faces and stuff. It's just the majority of the time is pareidolia or whatever. But this one specific time, he went out and he took a picture, and he decided to just take a picture over his shoulder. And he captured the image of an old 50s. It looks like an old 1950s pickup truck. And it's you can see it. You can see the wheels on it, the fender wells. You can see the whole 9 yards on this thing. But and I've blew it up on like a big screen, like projector, just to see if I could pull out any more details. And it looks to me like there's somebody changing a tire. There's it could be pareidolia, like I said, but it looks like someone's changing a tire. Somebody looks like they're leaning over the bed of the truck, looking in. And this area where he was at was I guess it was like a walking trail, and there was no vehicles or anything in there like that. But it was like he captured a glimpse of something from the past, and it's a truck. I mean, it is undeniable that it's a truck. You can see the fender wells on it and everything, the hood, everything.
Well, it kind of sounds like he took a picture into a time warp.
That's the kind of what he was thinking, or the best way that we could describe it. But have you captured anything like that before, John?
I haven't personally captured anything like that. No way. Now, it's hard to tell sometimes, because we've been in some old structures from time to time, and we've gotten some pictures where it appears that a ghost is trying to materialize. And so is it, again, in 1880s time frame as it appears, or is it in a 2024 time frame? It could be also a time portal.
Have you seen the footage? I think it's Gettysburg, where these people are shooting night vision with a night vision camera at night, and it looks like there's soldiers walking through the woods. Have you seen that? And
I haven't seen it, but I know people that have experienced something similar.
The way that it started out, it looked like almost kind of like lightning bugs, like these little white flashes of light, and then all of a sudden you can see, and it looked like soldiers, like you could see them going between the trees, and like you could look like one of them was going up a hill, and it was very, very interesting. People report, John, hearing, and I've had this happen to me as well, hearing voices in a house call your name. Like sometimes it happened like when you're waking up, or like when it happened to me, it happened while I was waking up once. And then it also happened when I was sitting on the couch, and it whatever this thing was whispered my name loudly in my ear, and there was nobody in the house. And the question we've got is this voices of relatives that from the have passed on, and some of them, and the interesting thing about the voices is sometimes the voices sound like family members that are actually alive. Have you heard of that before, John?
Well, I don't know that I haven't heard of it being from a family member that is alive. Now, we have had some where we had an experience with one young lady with the ghost box that Chris Moon operates. Her husband had been passed, and she had wanted to talk with him one last time. And so I had arranged for that for her. And we did it on Skype. And as soon as she heard him, she said, "That's him. That's his voice." And she could hear everything. So she was very convinced it was her husband. Now, there's some other interesting things to that, too, in that I bought this for her. I paid for it for Chris to do it for her birthday. Now, he died at about the time of her birthday. So her birthday was coming up, and we've been on an investigation together, and she said this under her breath, "I just wished I could have talked to him one last time." And something motivated me, and I said, "Are you serious? Do you really mean that?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I've got a friend. I'll call when we get back to the house, and we'll set it up." So I called Chris that evening, said, "Chris, I've got a friend here whose husband has passed away. She'd like to talk to him one last time." So Chris gave me a date and a time, and I wrote it down. I got off the phone. I turned around. I told her, we're all set. I got a date and a time. She says, when? I gave her the date and the time, and she dropped in the couch, turned pale as a ghost. It was the day he died, an anniversary date of the day he died. It was the hour he died. So,
wow.
Anyway, on that date when it rolled around, I told her, when this rolls around, you're not going to, once you start to experience this, you can't think. You're so excited about everything, write your questions down, everything you want to know and answer, write them down. So she had this yellow legal tablet. She was writing all these questions down on. And we were sitting at my dining room table on Skype talking to Chris. And Chris had mentioned to us that he was standing behind us, or he had mentioned he was standing behind us. And Chris said, I see him behind y'all. So anyway, we're getting close to 3/4 of the way through the time period that I had purchased for her. And I said, Siobhan, you've got to start asking these questions if you want these answers. And she looked at me and she says, he's standing behind us. He's going down the list. So she never had to ask a question. He was just going down the list answering.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. John, during your investigations, I noticed one of your videos the other day, you said your batteries went dead in your.
Yes.
Now, when you experience these, the battery draining, is there also a drop in temperature at the time?
There generally is. Now, the particular video you're talking about was out San Center Battleground. And this is at the end of the battle lasted 19 minutes. It wasn't very long. The Texans were vicious. They were terrible. They just took them out. And it lasted for 19 minutes, but the killing went on for hours. And there was a place there just past where the Mexicans were camped. And that was a swampy area. And many of them were trying to make their way through that swamp. And they were getting stuck in the mud. The Texans were on the high ground just shooting them out there like shooting fish in a barrel. And over 600 people were killed, while they're trying to escape. Mm-hmm. But that's the location that these batteries died. I didn't any more than pull these instruments out and turn them on and
zapped.
They were gone. It was a hot day that day. I was sweating. I didn't really notice the temperature, and I couldn't get the EDI data logger turned on. I mean, it didn't stay on, so the temperature dropped. I don't know. I didn't record a damn thing, so I can't say.
Oh, man. You got defeated.
Yeah, I was cleaned out. I was like one of the Mexicans. I was easy prey out there,
Did have you had any experiences where your energy has been drained yourself, like physically been drained?
Yes. I've had that happen. In fact, I've even had that happen at locations that I wasn't even investigating. I've been in locations where there was kind of a mind vampire there. And apparently some of these people have the power to feed on your energy. And boy, I tell you what, one day I was getting drained so bad, I just had to leave. I just got up and left the building.
Isn't that horrible?
I was trying to figure out who it was.
There are people out there that's like that, and I know that's hard for the general public to believe, but it happens. If somebody can pray good things and to God and ask for good things in prayer, there's people out there that do a bad prayer and can do the same thing in reverse.
Absolutely,
and are good at it.
Yes, indeed.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to go back to your initial question too. There was something I had wanted to bring up that I didn't, and I was thinking it's been on my mind the whole time. We were talking about the analog tapes. Now, there are people that believe that some of these voices that we hear are electromagnetic in nature. And of course, the recording tape is electromagnetic. It records electromagnetically. So it may be that if we're using a digital analog or digital voice recorder, we're not capturing everything that we could be capturing if we're doing it on tape. So but at the same time, you got to buy tape that's brand new, used for the first time, single time use, which gets expensive. Same with your digital camera and your film camera. Developing all those pictures costs a lot of money. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both, but again, you have to kind of weigh what you can afford.
John, I want to touch back on the sleep paralysis that you were talking about, or not sleep paralysis, the out of body experiences that you were
Okay,
talking about.
sure.
I've had that happen as well. And my question to you is, whenever you experience the out of body experience, do you feel your body vibrate and like at a high, it feels like it's vibrating at a high rate is what I'm saying. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I saw a video where this guy hit a tuning fork.
Uh-huh.
And he had a tuning fork on one side of a board, and he had another tuning fork on the other side, and he hit the one on the one side, and it transferred the energy from the one, and they both started resonating at the same frequency, and resonating in what he called sympathy, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm asking that is because when I've had that happen, my body is vibrating like it's almost at a tuning fork level. And it's almost like your body is vibrating at such a rate that your spirit or soul or whatever you want to call it disconnects and comes out of your body. Now, when I had it happen to me, I had full consciousness. I could look at, and I even got to look at my body while I was like that. And the best way I could describe it was the body was see-through, and I could see like a golden light around the edges of my body, and I could see my hands and I could see all around me. And I knew that I was out of my body. I realized it, and I realized that I could go anywhere I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. And I actually went downstairs because we lived in an upstairs place, and I went downstairs and stood behind somebody in the kitchen, and they didn't even know I was there. Yeah. But have you had that happen to you like that, John?
Well, it's been 70 years since I had my experience. And so it's not real fresh on my mind, and I don't remember. I do recall that my experience, I do recall looking down at my body, and I was up at the ceiling, with my back toward the ceiling and looking down. I don't think I was worried about the vibration. I didn't consider it at the time. What I was concerned about, I was having difficulty propelling myself around, and I had tried to swim like I was in water.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't work. And so apparently what you do is you're using your mind to move yourself around, and I was having difficulty mastering that. So I didn't want to go very far, and I was concerned about even getting back to my body a number of times until, I kind of mastered it a bit. But that's the main thing I was concerned about, was not getting back to my body. It's the most thing I remember about
it. John, what is your take on orbs? And I know some people think that their orbs are just dust or bugs or whatever, but sometimes orbs seem to move on their own and have, and some of them do. I can't speak for all of them, but some of the orbs that I've gotten pictures of, I've blown them up. And like the one orb that was, I wish I still had the picture. I think my wife still has it somewhere. But we had a party for her. It'd be like a memorial party for her deceased great uncle. And he was a World War II pilot. And he was a World War when they the helmets that they had was like a leather helmet with the black ear caps on it.
Yeah.
And we took pictures at this party, and that cap was actually there at the party, and they had like a little bingo game, and they gave each other, stuff from his effects or whatever. Yeah. And we took pictures, and one of the pictures, there was an orb, and this orb looked like a man's face wearing one of those pilot caps. Huh. And then another time I took one by my dad, and my dad's part Native American, and I captured an orb, and I blew it up and was looking at it, and the orb was around my dad, and this orb looked like it had a Indian in a full headdress it looked like a feather headdress like a chief would wear. Yeah. And it was right by my dad.
Well, so, I'm thinking from what you're describing that you're really getting an apparition rather than an orb.
You think so?
It's trying to materialize.
Mm-hmm. that specific day that happened with my dad, we were sitting around a fire, and my mother-in-law we had these stumps, and she had her drink sitting on the stump, and I was turned with my back to her, and I heard her saying, well, what is there, a ghost here or something? And I turned around and I looked, and her cup was rocking back and forth to where the liquid was almost spilling out, but it was doing it on its own, and then it just stopped. And she hadn't touched it, she hadn't hit it or bumped it or nothing. She said, yeah, what is this, a ghost or something?
Well, the what I call an orb is what I call it a true orb, and they vary in size, but it's almost like a one of these bubbles that kids blow through, those little things that they blow through, and it makes a liquid ball. The ones I've seen are just like that, different sizes, and I mean you can see it float across the air. Most everything else I have seen has been dust or a bug. A lot of times when we've been out and doing some pictures and stuff, there may be enough dust in the air. I'll take a laser, shine it down, and if I'm seeing it hit a lot of dust, I know that I'm going to get backscatter from the flash. It's going to, show a lot of particles, which are artifacts from the dust, really, to be honest with you. Also, if you're in a mosquito-infected area, we've caught a lot of mosquitoes and stuff. But a lot of what you see on some of the videos that people are showing and calling orbs are absolutely bugs flying that follow a path. Now, the dust will kind of, go on the currents of the air. And if you go walking through the room, generally somebody walks through the room, it'll stir up a little cloud of dust, and you'll see some of these sparkles and stuff from the dust. And so most of the time, what people are calling an orb is not an orb.
I had a coworker share some footage with me of a surveillance camera that they had in the set up in their home.
Yeah.
And late at night while they were sleeping, this surveillance camera, it was one of those motion activated ones that would actually follow. It actually moved and followed the object around the room.
Sure.
Well, the video starts out. You can see what appears to be some kind of an it looked like a square, it looks like a square. It had round edges on it. If that makes any sense, it was kind of square shaped with round edges, almost like an ink blot looking thing. But it was a light colored. It was like a white color. And I slowed the footage down and I analyzed this footage, and it looked to me like this thing materialized from behind the television. It comes from behind the television, shoots across the room so fast that it looks like it almost streaks, like makes a streak across the room, and the camera follows it. But it's not, there's no legs. It's not a person, how sometimes you can tell that it's a person.
Yeah.
But if that would have been a bug, would a bug have set off a camera like that and made it move?
I don't know. I think it would depend on the sensitivity that the camera was set for. Now, I'll tell you what, we have had some investigations where we had some of the CCTV cameras set up that are, on cable. And we actually had, we were doing an investigation at a house where it was two children's bedrooms, and the doors were together where you go in, and the cameras were set up looking into the children's room. And I mean, you were watching on a big monitor downstairs, 12 cameras, and we have an orb come right to the wall, disappear, and come out the other wall.
And you caught it come out the other wall.
Sir.
That is fantastic.
So that is an orb.
That's
not
is
dust
definitely
going through the wall,
orb.
Or a bug.
10 gold stars on that orb.
Yeah.
I had another coworker showed me some more footage. It was like surveillance footage in their house, and she thought she had a ghost. That's why she wanted to show me the footage.
Yeah.
And it would happen at a certain time at night, and I asked her, I said, like, is your furnace kicking on at that time of night, or you got something like that is kicking on? But what I finally figured out was that it was a cobweb up in the corner that when the air would catch it just right, it would blow, and it had a reflective property to it to where it looked like it was it looked like an apparition trying to
Well,
form, basically.
it'd be kind of misty looking, flapping in front of the camera. Yeah.
I had another coworker one time tell me that they thought they had a ghost because their radio was kicking on. And I DJ'd and have been familiar with some electronics and stuff. And so I told her, I said, when you go home tonight, I said, you check that, check your volume knob on the, on your radio and see if there's dust on it. I said, sometimes you can pull those knobs off and see if there's dust on there. And she did. She went home and it had a bunch of dust on it. She cleaned it off and it never kicked on by itself again. But I know radios and stuff like that, the ghosts and spirits can affect them. But
sure.
For that case, she was walking across the room and it was shaking the radio and it kicked the radio on. Just
very good.
So I try to keep an open mind, but I also try to, I want to try to say, what is this? And try to keep I don't want to jump to too many conclusions too quick.
We had a similar case where a guy had a new TV he had bought, and it was doing all kinds of crazy things. And he would sit there and be holding his controller and show you, hey, I'm not doing a damn thing. Well, it turned out his neighbor next door had bought the same TV. And he was flipping through the channels and stuff and affecting this other guy's TV.
Kind of like
he
that
had
movie.
To wind up moving his TV to get it a little further away so it wasn't affected.
Kind of like a movie Grumpy Old Man where he's watching the lottery numbers and again he's next door changing it.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever used any? Have you used any animals in your investigations? Like
we sometimes do. I have a small part Chihuahua, part Jack Russell Terrier that I take on a lot of the investigations with me. Now she doesn't bark. You have to pay attention to her. That if she alerts on something, you have to be watching her because you're not going to know if she saw anything or not if you're not watching her. But we have had animals on investigations, and sometimes it's very beneficial. And in fact, I was on a podcast just the other night, a couple of nights ago, and that was one of the ladies. Her cat, I think she was probably a witch, and that her cat's a familiar. The cat jumped up and was looking at my video and looking at me. I could see her looking in the camera at me, and I had mentioned my wife being with me and that she had passed some time ago. And the lady said, that's who's behind you. That lady behind you is why the cat is up here at the screen looking at you. So, yeah, animals can see these things and they've never been told, hey, ghosts don't exist. So, you're not fighting that thing that's been ingrained in your own mind that they don't exist. They see them.
Is there any one investigation that you've been on that stands out more than others, and one that is the most memorable to you?
Well, there are two that kind of stand out in my memory. One of them we were doing some EVPs on, and actually we were hearing the voice. So it was strong enough that we were hearing the voice we're recording, okay? And or we're listening to it on headsets. And I had taken my headset off, and I was asking the question. It said it was close, and I said, "How close are you?" And right in my ear, it said, "Close." My hair stood up on my neck. I looked around at everybody. Did y'all hear that? I mean, it went right in my ear, and I'm thinking, oh, I've never had anything like that happen, and I wasn't expecting that. So that's an experience I will never, ever forget. I mean, I had no idea they were that close. And then there was another one where we had one of our investigators attacked while we were at the Tremont House in Galveston and thrown on the floor and choked. And I hesitated for a minute because I couldn't see the attacker. And I'm thinking, how do I get my hands on this dude? How do we get her released, and stuff like that. So for a minute, I didn't know how to respond to this thing. And so that's something you got to take into account. You might want to think about what you're going to do in a case like that.
Was it see-through, John? The entity?
Yeah, absolutely. You could not see the entity at all. No.
You couldn't see it at all.
No.
Oh, wow. So how did the attack end? How did you guys put an end to it? Did you have to pray?
We started praying. We started praying and said, in the name of Jesus Christ, we cast you out. We rebuke you. Get out of here. You're not wanted here. Leave. So and it got up and left.
And it fled.
Yeah.
Wow. That leads me to another question about attachments. Have you had any attachments, like anything follow you home or?
I really haven't. Maybe my wife protects me from them. But also, well, gosh, I don't know if I ought to even tell you this or not.
That's okay. You don't have.
I've done some past life regressions, and actually, I walked with Jesus, and I won't tell you any more than that. So, I'm very strong religiously, and I have no problems with anything that's evil.
Well, I've kind of have the belief if you're walking with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you don't have to worry about a lot of things. A lot of the things that we do worry about, we probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Or one of I don't try to feed into it. Like if I have an experience with a ghost or an entity or whatever, I don't try to feed into it. I believe if you show fear to it, you're giving it power. I don't know how that works. And like the thing that whispered in my ear, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. It was almost like it yelled at me, like you said.
Yeah.
And I just acted like I didn't even hear it. Like I just acted like I was maybe deaf in that ear. But did anybody else in the room hear that voice?
Yes, they did. They absolutely did.
So they actually heard that.
They heard it. Yep.
What is the term? I'm not sure what the word is that I'm looking for, where objects will appear out of the air. And like I've heard people say like pennies just dropped out of the air, or a marble or something like that. Have you ever heard of that?
I have heard of it. I haven't really experienced that per se. Mm-hmm. What I have experienced is ghosts playing with me. I've left my keys on the table, or I've left the controller for the television on the table, especially my wife and my son. They're both passed, my oldest son. And so there are times when they've playing a joke on me. I just had it. It was just here. Where did it go? And I have to holler at them and tell them to put it back. And they put it back. It'll be right where I had it. But, I'll be running around the house looking in case I'm getting up there. I'm 78 years old. I could have moved it, and maybe not remember. Chances are very slim, though. I haven't done it very often if I have. But a lot of times when I just tell them, hey, Kay, put the keys back right on the table where I had them, and next thing I know, they're there.
Have you had pennies show up, John? Has the spirits ever left you pennies or anything like that around? Because I've heard people talk about pennies showing up in weird places, and my wife had family members that had passed away, and one ended up in the shower and one ended up in the bed, and neither one of us messed with any change around the bed. It was just so blatant, out of place. It just didn't make sense.
Well, to be honest with you, I have change showing up all the time, all kinds of change, quarters, nickels, dimes, pennies. And I don't know where it comes from, but I hadn't connected it. But you're right, I have heard of it, and maybe I should have been paying more attention.
John, can we get him to send us $100 bills?
Yeah.
Let's put our order in, John.
Somebody a little more affluent to, impress me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, we just haven't been to the right the right mansions, I guess.
That's right.
Before we go, I'm going to have to ask some questions about different things of categories of paranormal. Ghost experiences is one thing, but how about UFO or cryptids? John, have you had any experience with any of those?
I have not had any experience with a cryptid. However, I do have a member in my group that has, and I am told that she has befriended one, and she is going to take me to meet it. So that takes care of cryptids. UFOs, I have gone to some MUFON meetings. Back when I was in the fire department, I participated in chasing a UFO.
Awesome.
At high speeds, and we never caught it. So that was my only UFO experience.
Darn it. If the warp drive would have just kicked in, you might have got him.
Yeah, if I had just had a supercharger on that damn Ford.
Did it look like was it like an orange orb, a silver disc, or what was the?
I didn't get close enough to see it. I was behind several other deputy sheriffs. I had police radio in my car, and so I had heard them talking about chasing the UFO, and I saw one go by, one of the police cars, and I fell in behind it, turned my lights and siren on, and I took off after them. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
So, were you a police officer at one time? I know you said you was with the fire department. Have you worked as a police officer before?
No, but where I was, we shared some common frequencies with the police.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go here, John, I'd like to say, is there any advice you'd like to give new investigators, and how can new investigators be accurate with their information and to do the best investigating that they can? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I would tell them probably to try to pick a group that they could be a part of, because there's safety in numbers, for one thing, and they can learn from other people. And when you're in a group, some people are going to have talents in other areas where you may not be talented. You may be lacking in a talent, and they can mentor you. So I would always recommend that you don't go alone, that you go with a group, and that you work together. And I would go with a group that I trust and I fit into, because there are groups that are going to do things that you don't like, or not exactly with your beliefs or your style. My group, mostly, we want to prove and document what we're finding. So we don't have a lot of the flashy light things, because flashy lights don't tell us anything, but there's activity. We've got some flashy lights to tell us if there's activity, but we have instruments to measure the activity. So if you're going for scientific reasons, go with a scientific group. Now, there are groups out there that go, just for the excitement, the thrill of the moment. And, if you're looking for that, go with those people. So find somebody that fits your style of ghost hunting, and then, learn from them.
John, before we go, can you tell us about your TikTok channel and your YouTube channel, and just tell the people where they can find you at and how to find you? And can you tell them a little bit about your group that you're a part of? Is it called
Paranormal Houston Investigations?
Yes.
We're Paranormal Houston Investigations. We're out of Houston, Texas. We do a number of things. We do presentations to groups if they want to learn about the paranormal. We would like to try to educate people about the paranormal and tell them real information about the paranormal, instead of wild stories or blowing things up or exaggerating anything. We've tried to do that on our YouTube channel. Some of the videos we have there are showing how to use some of the instruments. We've got one where if you're just starting out, you look for the video that is about doing ghost hunting with your cell phone and making a pair of dowsing rods out of coat hangers. I show you how to make a pair of dowsing rods out of coat hangers and how to use them. And so that is usually what I start with a new beginner anyway. There are some apps on your phone you can use, and you can do a reasonably decent job of ghost hunting with that, and see if it's something you even like, and you're not out any money. Now, once you get into this is going to start costing you money, because some of these gadgets cost a lot of money, and it's not funny. So, that's one of the things that we're experiencing in our group. All the gadgets that we really want to have cost a lot of money. We're looking for donations, But anyway, my YouTube channel is at John Strobin. You can see my name there. It's one word, John Strobin /videos. And so you can go there and look at it. Our Facebook group is Paranormal Houston Investigations. We have a closed site, which is just for our members. And we have an open site where we share information with other people. So either one of those. And also I have a regular Facebook thing that is John Strobin also. So there are 3 pages there. TikTok is at John Strobin. And then we have Instagram, which is at Paranormal Houston Investigations. And our Twitter account is Dragon's Guardian. So those are the social media accounts that we have.
Wow.
And I didn't pick Dragon's Guardian. That was pushed on me.
Oh, that's a lot of social media platforms there, John. You cover them all.
Well, we got a few, and we're trying to spread out, and they're a little different on each one. The TikTok has a lot of I put the San Jacinto Battleground, not San Jacinto, but the Alamo on there, and some of the San Jacinto Battleground stuff. So you can see some of the things we've done out at the San Jacinto Battleground, and it was mostly covering that on TikTok, yeah. But the actual YouTube is mostly educational.
The 300 members that you have in your
we don't have many more.
What's that? No many more than
I don't have 350 anymore. No, actually, what happened? An interesting story is we had a huge fight that night.
Oh man,
there was different factions that opened up, and different people wanted to go different ways, and they had different views, which was fine. And so I think we separated. I think it was 8 groups by the time the weekend ended that we wound up in. So, but some of those groups are still active today. Some are not. Now, this happened in 2008, I believe. 2008.
So a while you've been doing.
Yeah, it's been a while ago. So, and it's a problem when you have that large. How do you take that many people to an investigation? So I would rather deal with a smaller group. Right now, I have probably 10 active people. And to be honest with you, 6 of them have been with me for over 16 years.
Wow. Now, the out of the 300, was there any from other states, or are they just all in the Houston area? They were all from the
Houston area,
or wow.
The surrounding area. They were close enough that they came to meetings and stuff. Yeah.
Oh wow. Do you guys? How often do you guys hold meetings, or do you just do virtual meetings, or do you guys actually meet up somewhere?
During COVID, we had started doing virtual. And we've kind of continued. Now, I don't know, the attendance has fallen off here lately. And I don't know, I'm starting to think I need a whole new team, except for a few,
as knowledgeable as you are, John, you need to start a paranormal boot camp.
Well, I'm thinking about it. And actually, I've been told I need to write a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I love your approach. I love your approach at things, the no nonsense and straight to the point approach. I really like that. And I appreciate that about you, how you're not only an investigator, but to be a good investigator, you debunk things and but with an open mind. Yeah. I think that's pretty awesome.
Now, we've had some people that were real good debunkers. And actually, we had a local police department that had talked about being a haunted location some years ago. And they had invited us out for a ghost hunt. And we went out there. And, they were watching us and paying a lot of attention. And suddenly, when we started finding magnets that they had planted to create electromagnetic
EMF
and started debunking it, they lost interest in us real quick, and they all turned around. Well, I didn't do that. Now I've got work to do. And they all went back to their desk and were working. They weren't following us anymore. So it was kind of interesting how some of that goes.
Wow. And messing with you with magnets.
Some clients are that way. We've gone out on some where the clients had brought neighbors in, and they all were sitting around with their drinks, and they're partying. They came for us to entertain them. That's it. So we were their entertainment.
Oh, wow.
And
here you are being serious.
That's not very conducive to a ghost hunt.
Wow.
I don't even think there were ghosts there.
Ain't that something?
Yeah.
That people would call up just for something to do and say, bring your drinks over. They're coming in.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's happened.
Oh, wow. I get it.
And of course, by the same token, we've done a number of bars too. There are a lot of bars that are haunted, and so those can be interesting too. Those can be fun.
Mm-hmm. There's some here in Indiana that's haunted like that.
I did have one gal that I used to work with a lot who was a very good psychic medium, and not only that, but she also was a remote viewer. And you were talking about the smoke. And that was one of the things she had taught me when she was teaching me remote viewing, was that a lot of times when a remote viewer enters the room, and they can somehow remotely, they can sense another remote viewer and find them. and come into the same room with them halfway around the world. So one of the things she taught me was it seems like it always smells like pipe tobacco when they come in. So that's one of the signs that you've got a remote viewer coming in. Even so, it may not be a ghost; it may be a remote viewer. Now, she could remote view, and there were times when I would be out on an investigation. She'd call me in the middle of an investigation and start directing me where to go and where to take the team. And that's impressive. I see it impressed you. Where'd you go?
Oh, sorry. I had you muted there for a second.
Oh.
I was just talking away like a crazy person, thinking I was talking to you.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I had a cat sneaking up on me, and I didn't want to make any noise, so I put it on mute.
Okay.
The remote viewing thing takes the psychic deal to a whole new level, doesn't it? And I think a lot of people can do that, and they just don't realize they can do it.
There are a lot of abilities that people don't know exist. Now, I don't know if you're on any of the sites that I normally post to. I've got about 6 sites right now where I put a little term of the day. And, to be able to talk to people about the paranormal, when you use a word or a term, it's got to mean the same thing to you as it does to me. And so otherwise you're talking different language,
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is over 207 vocabulary words right now, or terms. And so if you sit down and try to teach that to somebody, who is going to be up for studying a dictionary,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what I do is I've got a little graphic, and I put out a paranormal term of the day. And if I can give it out in small doses, then people, just one word a day. I have a lot of comments on that paranormal term of the day. I've even had some of the other groups ask me to post in their group, and I've done that. And that's why I'm up to 6 right now, posting some of these terms of the day. But it is very helpful for us to be learning the terminology. And I add a new term almost every day.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm going to have to check into that and follow along with that, because I need to know a lot of those terms myself.
Look on my Facebook page. They're posted on my Facebook page as one of the groups I post in.
I sure will. Sure will. John, I think I'm running out of time here, and I need to go because I have to work tomorrow.
Okay.
But, I really appreciate you coming on here, and I'd like to ask you, would you be interested in coming back sometime and talking to us again?
I could talk about paranormal anytime. You
have an open invitation anytime, John.
Okay.
I really appreciate you coming on here and taking your time with us today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, Truth Seekers, another show, John Strobin from John of Paranormal Houston, and one awesome guest. So I'm going to take us out of the chat room and play our outro, and I'll talk at you guys later. Nice meeting you, John.
Stay aware. Stay prepared. Faith over fear. And keep the tomahawk of truth sharp. Adios.